Hello, and welcome to the Super 70 Podcast, Episode 20, The Social Network. The Super 70 Podcast is an audio commentary meant to sync with the film we are discussing. You don't have to, though, and can go on listening without watching anything. I would, however, recommend that you watch the film we are discussing before listening to the Super 70 Podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Pocket Cast, Himalaya, and my website at www.thatdylandavis.com. I'm Dylan Davis. We will be using the 2010 release of David Fincher's The Social Network, the single DVD, not the double DVD release. If you hit play movie on that DVD player now, this podcast should sync with the rest of the film. Dave Anderson is once again in the hacienda, although after the Kingdom of Heaven, I have no idea why.
Oh, come on. That was no fault of yours or anything else.
That was Ridley Scott's fault. All right. So we jump right into the bar scene, which Fincher on his commentary for the same movie. Yeah. Closed captioned. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Only because the dialogue is so critical in this movie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. The Final Club. Aaron Sorkin wrote the script. Aaron Sorkin is infamous in Hollywood for cranking out these dialogue-heavy scripts. He most famously wrote Moneyball, which did a very good job of breaking down some very complicated baseball statistic talks into something that was approachable to the viewing audience. You never start off with 10 minutes of dialogue in any movie, so that was very original, even in a drama. Second, people were blown away by Jesse Eisenberg, and oh my God, who is that brunette? Third, this scene was shot with a red digital camera and took, are you ready?
I'm
99 takes.
That's David Fincher, though.
99 fucking takes.
Yes.
I can't sit through 99 of anything. I can't count 99 paper clips. I can't count up to 99. I can't sit on a park bench and look at 99 girls.
Well, I wanted to get the last one, but I could probably eat 99 grains of rice.
Quite possibly. So this is the same equipment and technology that Fincher used to shoot Zodiac, which was 2007. And that courtroom scene with Robert Downey Jr. was famously peeing into jars and keeping his urine around the set in order to protest the fact that they had hit 100 takes on that scene.
He's something of a perfectionist.
He is, but I also have to say every shot in all of his movies from, I would say, his second movie on, just look absolutely beautiful. This looks like a Vermeer painting.
Yeah, but even Alien 3 was objectively aesthetically pleasing for as ugly as it was.
Right, and I think that was part of, we can probably go into that in the special edition, but part of the problem with Alien 3 was that you had a plot and a storyline which was conflicting with what you were visually experiencing.
Accurate.
Yeah. So there's an article online called The 20 Things Wrong with the Social Network, and I read that, and one of the things it brings up is the fact that Rooney Mara's character, Erica Albrecht, is actually, she does not exist. She's a fictional person. Zuckerberg did have a girlfriend at one point in time, but that she was not the basis for what's going on here. And I read the book, The Accidental Billionaires, which The Social Network was based on, which Aaron Sorkin used to write the script. And he said that Zuckerberg just went into his dorm room one night for whatever reason and just decided to just start punching code. There was no bar or no girlfriend at the bar, so as anyone can tell. So if I were Mark Zuckerberg and I were looking at this opening scene, I would be pretty pissed off at what really is tantamount to character assassination.
Okay. I have
However, I would say he might have deserved it.
Well, I mean, I find this movie fascinating, right? Because I remember when they were making it, hearing about it, and it was just a topic that had zero interest to me. The only thing that was of interest was David Fincher was making it. So I don't care about Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I don't really have a whole lot of experience with it. So it's just a topic that didn't have a lot of interest. But immediately, it's an extremely compelling just for a story standpoint. And I don't look at this from my personal perspective as this is how Zuckerberg is. I look at it as this story. It might as well be fictional to me, right? So I guess you're right, but I would be stunned if Zuckerberg, this keeps him up at night because he's got several billion he's sleeping on. So I'm sure he's fine.
No, absolutely. And Zuckerberg that we're seeing here is a character. Mm-hmm. He's a fictional character.
Right.
And just like she is. And that's hard for people to get their heads around.
Yeah, just like Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right. Exactly. But there are several things throughout the film that also, if Sorkin or if the author of the Accidental Billionaires, if I could remember his name, Mark something, if they had just read just a little bit more, done a little bit more research, Zuckerberg actually rode crew in high school.
No, that's interesting.
Right. So the idea that she brings up crew and it pisses him off because she must be into bulky athletes and things like that doesn't really actually fly. But for the purpose of the character,
the story,
it works very well.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is all right. So we got to go past the bar scene, which is a tremendous establishment of this fictional character based on a real life human being, but which is I love that opening scene. But then once we get to the titles, which is what we're watching now, it's really a kind of a masterwork in camera movement and establishing mood and geography. And the way he's surrounded by a lot of different people on his walk back to his dorm, but he's certainly isolated. It's a good analogy for Facebook in general. I mean, it's really exceptionally well done.
Yeah, the tone.
Yeah. I mean, the guy really is a master and can make something like opening titles be really compelling. Plus the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score.
Oh, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
They're absolutely brilliant. And Trent Reznor's got a history of working with David Fincher. I remember that Fincher used Closer for the opening credit sequence on Seven.
Right. I think this was the first movie. I may be mistaken, but I thought this was the first movie they'd scored.
That they scored, yeah. They did the entire Vietnam War.
Right.
Which is, sorry, that's the cooler for people waiting at home. We're cracking...
We're cracking cold ones.
We're cracking cold ones while we watch this. That shot there, just him simply going through the pillars of some establishment, right? That is standing in for. Yeah, Harvard. Harvard wouldn't let Fincher anywhere near the campus. Harvard was very, very shitty with Fincher. They didn't want Fincher or the movie production company or Ben Mesrick. That's the guy's name. He wrote the book. They didn't want anybody who even remotely touched this movie having anything to do with Harvard. So they went and shot it at several different universities. I think one of them was in Pennsylvania. But it does look like Harvard. I mean, you wouldn't...
At least what I would imagine. I've never been. Not familiar with the campus, but it's definitely a good portrayal of a Northeast upper echelon university.
And even going down to the clothing with the theme of elitism, which pops up in the very first scene of dialogue, and it circles through the entire film. Mm-hmm. Mark's wearing a Gap shirt or a Gap sweater right now. And, if this were the Winklevi, as they were called in the book, it would be definitely something upper scale.
Definitely
right.
Brooks Brothers hoodies.
Gucci for some people, or maybe that's too trashy for someone this high and elite, but as the Winklevi. But it's just the fact that, Mark buys his clothes at the mall, mm-hmm. and the others buy theirs at Saks. Yes. Or Bloomingdale's or things of that nature, right? And so there was a lot of thought given into the production design and the clothing and not just the characters and the dialogue. This is typical Fincher. It's all the way around. Going back to the bar scene, we need to wrap that up because he's into the blogging now, and the blogging scene is very integral to the film. But there's that that line of elitism was like, the only reason why we're in this bar is because you used to sleep with the door guy.
Right.
And she contests that. First of all, I didn't sleep with the door guy. The door guy is a friend of mine. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a door guy.
Right.
And it's very strange that Mark shits on elitists for being elitists, and yet he turns around and has this hypocritical side of his character.
Well, he's definitely portrayed as being exceptionally envious of the other people's status.
Right. Right. And then saying, well, you don't need to study because you're going to be you. Why would you need to study? And it's like saying, well, I don't need to study because I went to the University of Houston and not the University of Texas. Fuck you. I earned my degree just like you did. Right. But there is that attitude in this state, as you well know. So there's not too much difference.
Well, I mean, it's pretty standard across any subject, just about any organization. Somebody's always going to say, well, we're part of X and you're part of Y, and Y just sucks.
Yes.
Why? Because I say so.
Exactly.
But this is I do want to call this out because this is the only time that I can recall where any coding in computer work was ever done on screen that was actually compelling. This is just...
I know. Yeah. And the tapping, I don't remember the tapping of a keyboard being so loud. And of course now mechanical keyboards are back in favor. Like they went out, it was the only thing that you could get for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And then the wire touch is what pretty much everybody uses now. But programmers like to go back to the mechanical.
Mm-hmm. It's very satisfying.
It is.
They were really quick to get rid of the typewriter, but they want to maintain that feel.
Right. Now, I don't even know what you call it, the whore coach, or bringing the girls in to these elitist parties. This was another thing that Harvard was not very happy about, and specifically the clubs at Harvard were very upset about it. Certainly. But, this does go on.
I was about to say they're probably upset because there's probably a certain degree of truth.
It's documented, and Eduardo Saverin, who was one of the sources for the Accidental Billionaires, he brings it up in the book as one of the reasons why they all wanted to get into a club is to meet girls.
Meet girls, yeah. Go figure. That's why he's... Well, I mean, when you get around to it, that's the whole...
The prime motivation of everything. Yeah. And if you don't understand that, I mean, were you never 20 years old? You don't have to go to college, and certainly don't have to go to Harvard to understand the base instinct that's going on here, or why he's in the bar with Erica to begin with. But there were people that were even saying, well, that just looks made up or unrealistic. But, I've seen Eyes Wide Shut. That's just 1 degree removed from this.
Oh, sure.
This is where all that shit starts.
Which, good for them.
Yeah, right. As long as everybody's consenting.
Right, which everybody is. Everybody's trying to get something. I mean, the girls are not there. They're not coerced there, at least the way it's portrayed in this film. The guys are certainly not reluctant. This is people wanting specific things from other people. Now, how many takes did that take?
Oh, I know. Yeah, flipping it into
the dark into the orange.
And that's supposed to be Dustin Moskovitz there, who's another founder of Facebook, who's also one of the primary coders in the early days, and who's still there working for Facebook, and is kind of known as a sort of loony personality who's a carefree spirit. And he's in the background a lot here, I think, because they just did not know what else to do with his character, because they tried to keep the story centered on Mark, Eduardo, and the Winklevi, yeah. And that makes complete sense. And even Trey Parker is kind of like a fly-by-night. Like he comes in and Trey Parker, Sean Parker.
Yes, I knew what you meant.
You knew what I mean. Yes.
Question. Like Facebook is pretty, enough.
Yeah. And Eduardo did have Saverin did have like a chess equation that he was using to rank chess players, but that's not what Mark used for his facesmash.com. He actually created his own algorithm, and that was part of what kind of amazed everybody was he was drunk, he was blogging, he was coding at the same time. Mm-hmm. He did it all in the span of, I believe, 9.5 hours. Right. But it didn't crash the servers. They pulled the plug, I think, after 48 hours. Mm-hmm. But he had already stopped the website. He saw the traffic going through the server, and he decided to pull it before they shut it down. So when they shut it down, they didn't know that he had already stopped it.
Right, which is very different than the portrayal in this movie.
Right, which is fine. I mean, that's getting
again, creative license and
Right. Now, these outside shots that Fincher's using it's really establishing like a voyeurism of what it's like to look inside through doorways, through windows, into people's homes. You know, like, it's very good. It's very much like how people view life, who want to get inside something. Right. They always view it from the outside or something. That's what I got from his use of just simply positioning the camera someplace.
I do like how the girls say this is pathetic, and it appears that they are doing it themselves, which is kind of a good commentary on people's use of Facebook, and probably mine if I suddenly jumped on it.
A lot of hypocrisy in the film.
Oh, yeah.
That Fincher exposes. Not just Marx, but a lot of the characters have hypocrisy.
And this, I do remember this being just some remarkable acting by Rooney Mara.
Yes.
Is just the frozen tear in the eye.
Oh, she's amazing. And I did at the time, I could not tell you what it was, but what I refer to it now is the Margot Robbie effect. I went to the theater to see The Wolf of Wall Street, and there's that shot of Margot Robbie walking up to the camera and looking into the lens. And I thought just instantly, oh my God, she is going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to work out for her.
And that's what I thought when I saw this, when Rooney Mara turns to the camera and cries. And even later on when she shows up at the bar and she's like, good luck with your video game or whatever, I just thought, man, she's going to be huge. And other than The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is also a Fincher film, I really haven't seen her all that much, and that's really shocking to me.
It is rather unusual. I think she's in, what's the Netflix television show that David Fincher shepherded?
Mindhunter?
No.
House of Cards.
House of Cards. I believe she was in that for a short amount of time, although I've not seen that show, unfortunately.
This is why we have IMDb.
Yes, but I believe she was in that, if I'm not mistaken. Reserve the right to be wrong.
Well, she was in Carol, which I didn't see, which I understand was amazing. And where's the recent filmography? Jesus, this is supposed to be way easier than this. Here we go. Yeah, going back 2016, nothing I recognize. Side Effects.
I'm sure it's absolutely.
Social Network 2010. Since then, now she was in Youth in Revolt before then, which was very good, not as good as the book. She was in Her, Trash, Carol, Pan.
Yeah, I may be mistaken.
But nothing that jumps out at me. And after the Harvard Review Board, Mark says to Eduardo, why doesn't anybody have a sense of humor anymore? And that's kind of ironic because he's so stoic most of the time. He doesn't seem like he has a sense of humor at all.
He's like an alien who is trying to project how humans would have a sense of humor. But it really does set up his ability to think exceptionally quickly and then jump from subject to subject without any kind of transition period, which completely confuses everybody he's speaking to. But it is really well done in this film because you pretty much have a good grasp on your end what's going on, what he's talking about.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's another actor other than Eisenberg that could have just nailed something like that in Soren's script. The Accidental Billionaires, and most of it is a lot of testimony from not just the trial, but from Savarin speaking to the author. And Savarin really outlined Zuckerberg's personality. And I think he nailed it in terms of tone, but he speaks way too much. Apparently, from Savarin's point of view, that Zuckerberg does not talk all that much at all, and that was one of the problems of why he didn't have any friends and why he wasn't very social to begin with, which is, again, one of the ironies of him creating the social network. But he was a very monosyllabic personality. Yes, no, maybe. Those were his top three answers to anything that you asked him. And so the idea that there's this Eisenberg on fire, which we all sat in the theater and said, wow, that was just simply outstanding. That's a great character development from Sorkin and Fincher's point of view. And, of course, from Eisenberg.
It makes it a lot more compelling to watch, that's for sure.
Right. And now the Winklevi showing up here, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, who were real Olympians who did go to Beijing and compete, and they medaled. And then Divran Narendra, their buddy. Now, this, for those of you who are not aware of it and watching this for the first time, those are two different actors playing the twins. and they put the dots on one actor's face. Even like this shot is simply amazing. There's nothing like that, even at a dead ringers. It's just simply astounding having them both on the screen like that. They're painting Armie Hammer's face on Tyler Winklevoss's body.
Right, and Fincher has always used a lot of special effects, but they're always incredibly subtle, and generally speaking, they're unnoticeable.
They are, especially in this one. And I remember watching Zodiac and just thinking, wow, the man did not use a single special effect in the entire movie. And that's absolutely shit. It's something like 90% of Zodiac is repainted.
Right. He's just really exceptionally good at using it to enhance the story as opposed to being the story.
Mm-hmm. And this is all true about Mark going to the board and saying, you know, I would like at least some recognition that I've done something that no other student has done. And Harvard was completely unwilling to go that route. And here we have another conflict of he's in an elitist university. The elites are being elitist by trying to put him into this mold, but he's being an elitist by trying to break out of this mold. Mm-hmm. And there's just lots of very high tier stuff going on that normal people just don't give a shit about, sitting on the corner selling roses for $1 and checking their Facebook status on their Android device.
So answer me this, because I watched this again recently, about a week ago, and it's the first time I'd seen it actually quite a few years. But do you have any reason to understand why Eduardo in this movie is friends with Mark Zuckerberg? Because he is really looking out for his buddy. As soon as he found out about him getting, dumped by his girlfriend, comes to check to see if he's okay. And there's other examples where he's, really making sacrifices for his buddy. And Mark never does jack shit for the guy.
That was never in The Accidental Billionaires. It never had a why. It just...
They just were, and that's
they
what it was.
just were friends. Yeah, and actually, it started right about the time he was coding Facebook, and it grew through the foundation of the company. It didn't pre-exist like it does in the film, but neither here nor there. There is no answer.
No, I was just curious. I found it rather interesting because Zuckerberg has certainly put on his not a repellent personality, but certainly, aside from the obvious brilliance, nothing to really be attracted to or find interest. Right.
Well, and like the character Erica says, you're going to think that people don't like you because you're a nerd, and that's not true. It's because you're an asshole. He did have an obvious talent that drew people like Dustin Muscovitz to him, and but the monotone, flat personality was something that Saverin said was if I remember correctly, it was, or maybe it was the author's contention, like it was simple. Mm-hmm. People could understand it. There's nothing overly complicated in his personality that said, I don't want to mess with somebody like that. I don't want to I don't want to waste my time with someone like that. I mean, from all intents and purposes, from what I read about Zuckerberg's real personality, he's not nearly as abrasive as Eisenberg's character is.
Oh, I'm sure. But it is one of those that dramatic license to make a compelling story has to have.
Very much so.
Every scene he's in is pretty much conflict.
Right.
I think, actually, I'd have to look at that again, but I bet you every single scene he's in, there's conflict. Even this one right here, where they're in the Porcelain. Yeah. There is just this understated conflict, with we can't let you in past the bike room, and it's just pretty fascinating.
Yeah, another elitist moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And which instantly pisses him off on the inside.
Right, which is why he sits there and demonstrates how it's not important to him because he wouldn't take Microsoft's money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, with the MP3 player that he made. Yeah. The advantage of free software. Well, Facebook has a unique business model in which the users don't pay for it, and corporations pay to get access to the data that Facebook sells to them. And, of course, there is some advertising.
I don't know if it's that unique. I mean, it's really no different than ABC.
Or Twitter or any other, Instagram.
Right.
And this goes into what Mark says later in the film, that they don't know what Facebook is yet.
Right. And I still don't know if anybody really knows what it is. I mean, it doesn't create anything. There's nothing tangible with it. It's hard to define why it has value.
Yeah.
I mean, there is advertising associated with it, I think. But beyond that, it's...
Well, it's not as... It's very nascent is the wrong word. It's very subtle. Hotornot.com or facemash.com, which Zuckerberg hosted for all of 48 hours, that was very conflict-ridden, problematic, in-your-face. Those websites are all about judgment.
Right.
And the Facebook is also about judgment, but it doesn't appear on the face of it to be about that. But that's what you're doing when you're perusing other people's pages and looking at other people's photographs and looking at other people's biographies, is you're judging.
Right.
And so you in the film, you balance that into these not courtroom scenes. These are deposition scenes. And there's a lot of judging in the deposition scenes by everybody.
Of course.
All around the table. Right. The 3 blue suits and the 3 blue ties. Yeah. And Fincher also very brilliantly separates the depositions by color tone. So
you know exactly where you're at.
Right.
Even though on the surface, it all appears to be the same.
Yeah, and the editing, by the way, to be able to cut through 2 different depositions.
It's a masterwork. This is probably the best movie, at least of the 2010s, as it currently stands from what I've seen. You know, and it's just remarkable that it didn't win the Academy Award. I know the Academy Award doesn't matter. Everybody knows that, but it does matter. And it is one of those that, what did win that year? I'm not really sure. But I know that this will probably be it will probably be better remembered than whatever won. Which is probably going to be an incredibly embarrassing statement when I look up who actually won the Academy Award that year.
Yeah, well, you go ahead and look up that, and I'll just recite what seems to be this, I don't want to say a problem that Fincher has, but definitely a trend that he has in his career, where, I mean, Alien 3 was what it was, and we'll just move on from that. Yeah. But 7 had just such a huge impact. I mean, 7 was in theaters forever. I went to go see it like 2 times. You know, I was just floored by. I'd never seen anything like it. We still quote lines from that movie to this day. You know, what's in the box and all that shit. Captain and everything. Detective, rather, when he's screaming at the end. And then Fight Club comes out. And I remember you and I and your wife went to go see Fight Club. And just coming out of the theater, like punching the air, going, oh my God, that was so amazing. And just being completely blown away by it. It's the best classic movie we've seen in 10 years, and I was never very impressed by movies in the 90s. So I thought that year, 1999, that was a stellar year. And there's a book about it called The Best Movie Year Ever, which is a very good book. But it just seemed like nobody cared about Fight Club. It just came and it went.
Yeah, but it was definitely not a movie for everybody.
No, that's true. Panic Room was a movie for everybody, which is also an awesome movie, which, again, people didn't...
I bet you it made money, though.
I bet you it did make money, but nobody's talking about it now.
Oh, gosh, no. Because it's like The Game, right? Another one of his just kind of rote thrillers, but it's exceptionally well done.
Well, that's kind of like The Stranger by Orson Welles. Very well done, very stylistic, and for some reason doesn't attain very much memory.
Right, it's not... embedded in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and Zodiac might be his best film.
It might be. I can see where it would be people's favorite for sure.
Yeah, tied with The Social Net. I mean, I cannot believe in between Sorkin's writing, Fincher's directing, the production value of the film, and what everyone's bringing to the table in terms of acting, The Social Network. How is this not like the greatest film of the last 20 years?
I think it's one of those that you will probably see it. It's probably already been reevaluated and probably elevated to, I would imagine, most everybody's top 10, at least most serious critics, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Of the 2010s.
Yeah, people who aren't writing reviews in their basement like me.
Right. Yeah. You never know. They probably haven't even hired.
At least I'm not in my mom's basement.
The King's Speech. That's what won.
Are you shitting me?
No, I'm not. And I'm sure it's a phenomenal... I've never seen it, so I can't judge it.
It's a good movie.
I'm sure it's very good.
But it's a throwaway. Yeah. It's not... And I mean throwaway in the nicest sense of the term. It's not this movie.
Well, it's like, what, Green Book winning over Get Out, right?
That's crazy.
It's like Green Book... Well, I'm sure Green Book also is a... It's probably... I've not seen it.
I hear it's a good film.
I'm sure it's a fine film, but it just won't be remembered. Or what was the silent movie that won... back in 2013 or 2014, The Actor, I think that was the name of it. You remember that?
No.
Yeah. Listeners, I am not making this up. There was a silent movie that won the Academy Award for Best
Picture.
In like 2000
in 2013.
Yeah. And as you can see, it made a heck of an impact on our prestigious hosts.
Yeah, well, and of course, Eduardo goes back into the Jewish fraternity party here, and of course, the door says "private entrance." Right.
Yes.
So Fincher hitting you on this thing, constantly bringing up that theme of exclusivity.
Oh yeah, and also it's one of those things where Fincher is actually, his movies are freaking funny.
They are
necessarily pleasant, but they are funny.
Well, even Seven it was probably
it's funny movie.
You know, between that and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, those are probably his darkest films in terms of mood. But man, they've got a lot of humor in it. Well, Panic Room doesn't have too many jokes in it.
Well, I don't know.
But that's totally based on fear. Panic Room is all fear-based.
Right, intention. And I know the Jared Leto character and all that. I mean, there was just a total comedy of errors where there are...
Oh, yeah, that's right. In the beginning with him and Forrest Whitaker, the bumbling. Yeah.
And it is funny.
And then Dwight Yoakam showing up.
Yes,
yeah.
It was just one of the scariest people I can remember.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But where... Okay, so...
Did you find the silent movie?
No, I haven't. I'll look it up.
Okay.
I'll look it up afterwards. People either have turned off by now or they already know the answer.
Right. So there's two lawsuits going on. We talked about lighting and setting to distinguish the two. The Winklevi lawsuit. They claimed that they, in effect, hired Mark to write their code for an idea that they had, and thus the idea of Facebook and the billions that go with it are theirs, even though they didn't write one line of code, and nothing Mark wrote for Facebook ever entered into the Winklevoss's hands.
Right.
So this goes back to the idea that we don't pay Thomas Edison for every time we turn on a light bulb or play music on my iPhone.
Although he would like you to.
The other lawsuit is an internal one with Savarin, and he alleges that he was given a stake in Facebook. He put up the initial money for it, and slowly Mark screwed him out of his interest.
Yeah. I mean, and that one he totally did.
That's the most solid footing for the lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
He was definitively screwed over. Yeah. I mean, it may have been his fault or whatever, because this only portrays essentially his perspective, because it makes it a very compelling story. I don't know the whole story.
Right. Well,
but I do remember looking that up. It's like, yeah, nobody else's shares were diluted.
So this goes back to the screenwriting, which is, man, I don't know how many times I'm going to bring up Aaron Sorkin's name, but Sorkin read The Accidental Billionaires, but he actually used a text from the depositions that was given to him, which is not public, to write some of the dialogue for the film. And there's another website where they actually detail things that are in the deposition. And apparently Zuckerberg turned over hundreds and hundreds of texts between him and Eduardo Savarin about what was going on this summer. Mm-hmm. Right, because I believe that he started
to Palo Alto.
Right, yeah. So they started in the fall.
Oh, by the way, the name of the movie was The Artist.
The Artist, it was right? Okay, yeah, I didn't catch that one. So he started in the fall. I believe by the spring he had it up and running, and then he moved out to California when he finished the spring term, and he effectively never went back. And it was around August is when Savarin found out that and all this is in 2003, 2004, is when Savarin found out he was screwed out of his shares. So, but the text that Zuckerberg was showing for the depositions were all these texts, and I think there was a great minority of them had to do with the business. Mm-hmm. Everything was partying, girls,
right.
The weather. It just did not seem that Savarin had his heart and his mind into the enterprise.
And I understand that he did not, from the little bit that I had read, was that he seemed to be very much not a detached partner, but certainly not as invested as some of the other main players, that's for sure. That being said, he had his shares.
Right.
He put up the initial money.
Right. He did. And he still has his shares.
Right. He got something back. It's total NDA. Who knows what he has, but his name is back on the masthead.
Yeah. And the joke about John Harvard, the statue of John Harvard, the 3 lives of John Harvard, I found that exceedingly funny because everybody's lying in this film. I think it was, that's a true story, actually. Savarin actually did have to go through that rite in order to get into the Phoenix Club. But I think Fincher really included that to sort of show how nobody knows anything about anybody.
Yeah, but the one thing I do find very interesting, and this is where courtroom dramas and these type of this kind of subgenre, even though there's no courtroom scenes in this, is that I don't think anybody's lying in any of their depositions. They completely believe their perspective and point of view.
That's true.
I think that's part of the reason it makes it compelling, because it would be very easy to portray the Winklevi as just these bumbling, evil jackwagons, which I really don't. I think it's actually a very kind portrayal relative to how you can oftentimes see these type of characters, these avatars portrayed. One of the brothers, he's exceptionally honorable. At least that's the way he wants to present himself. Men of Harvard, they don't sue, and there's just so many different things where there's no dumb characters in here. People make incredibly dumb decisions.
Right.
But there's no stupid people.
No, and it's another thing that I have to hand it to Armie Hammer and David Fincher for centering in on, is that you get a very, very good distinguishing line between Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss.
They definitely have different personalities.
Right.
They're similar, but they're
different.
But
it's like the brake and the gas, right? That's how I saw them.
Good way to see it.
Yeah. There's Moskovitz saying, that girl in that class. And again, something that's very basic that we've all done or been exposed to.
But this is pretty amazing, because this is one of the huge components of Facebook, as I understand it, is the status update.
Was that Control-Alt-Delete that he put on his computers?
I don't know if it was either that or...
Because that would be funny. If he hit Control-Alt-Delete and he ran out of the room. Because he locks up his computer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You log out.
Right.
It's like he's logging out of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But
gotcha. Yeah. Well, yes. Okay. Now I get your point. I'm sorry. I am just dumb as a box of rocks right now.
That's all right.
9, you asshole. That even right there, those details are so well done.
Yeah.
Have we gone way off your script?
Well, then that's all right. Now I was watching it again last week, and I saw two things in the style that really popped out at me. Just like everything, you watch it enough times, you start picking up things. Mm-hmm. And one of them is when the depositions are going on, there's a lot of cutting.
Yes.
The editing is very, very fast, and nobody wants to sit through a legal drama with no cuts.
No, you're going to have to generate some momentum.
Right. And then the cuts lengthen, even during standard dialogue, as when you're out of the deposition scenes. The other thing that I noticed, and of course, if you watch YouTube enough, you'll find David Fincher's probably in the top 5 directors that everybody makes YouTube videos about.
Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. That totally makes sense.
And everybody's got a fucking opinion on it.
I don't doubt it.
Just like we do.
No, sure.
And there are some very brilliant people who have broken down a lot of his films into various thematic elements to showcase why he's so good. Mm-hmm. And the best one that I saw was this guy who took his last 5 films and then showed camera moves just like this one that just passed, and centering the character on the frame and then moving the camera to mimic the motion of the character.
Gotcha.
So Savarin just sat down, so the camera actually elevated to follow his movement downwards. It's very easy to follow someone down a hall and center them and do that, but Fincher will have someone walk through a doorway and move to the left, and the camera will go through 2 or 3 movements to keep that person in center frame. And everything around the character is moving. Mm-hmm. And typically...
And now they're the center of that shot.
Right. Here's Mark praying, which I thought that was pretty good. And of course, we also have to say, Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo Saverin and most of their friends, Dustin Moskovitz, all these guys were Jewish. They were all in the fraternity together. So for those of you who are freaking out, I'm sure that Jews pray just the same as everybody else does. They just learned how to do it in a synagogue and not in a church. Mm-hmm. So the rocking back and forth is culturally different than what the Christian community would be used to. I had somebody bring that up. Like, it doesn't look like he's praying. I'm like, trust me, he's praying.
To be honest with you, I thought he was sleeping.
Well, that's a good reading of it.
Well, that's what I thought he was doing.
Like he's done.
He's just nodding off. I mean, he's been grinding himself to death, and he's
Yeah.
sleeping
For
sitting
weeks.
up.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the.
That's what you got out of
Yeah.
it. Interesting. Yeah, physical comedy there, which I have to say, I'm one of those guys. I'm out of the box on that. Somebody falls down, I don't immediately laugh.
Well, I don't either, but when it's well done, and
Well,
it's subtle,
and he did it very well.
Yeah.
That's just a preference on my part.
Mhm.
This kills me that they would have her whole room set aside to just do this. I mean, you must have a facility like this for people who row crew. But you talk about.
it's certainly not part of our reality.
It's not even the 1%. It's like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Who like crew, because that is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, maybe there's 1,000 people in the world who row crew.
Yeah. At least at any kind of super high level.
It just seems like it. But whatever. Josh Pence is the actor who plays Cameron Winklevoss.
Oh, okay.
He's
And
face
he does
disappointed.
show up, right? I mean, that actor.
Yeah, he's in
I believe-
other shots in the background.
Right,
Fincher
yeah.
used him, yeah.
Isn't he the guy who comes up to Eduardo and Zuckerberg when they're outside the bathroom so he can go into the restaurant? I think
that's him, yeah.
that's him.
I think that's just, yeah. And he's actually British, if I remember correctly. But in that scene, I think he's using an American accent.
Sorry, it's very easy to just kind of stare at this movie because it's so well done.
Well, and okay, see
If I had a drug dealer,
see
I
the
could give
slight
3.
camera moves there that would happen. They said that one there, and I'm surprised there's not one on him. But here, just like that happened with the Hammer. Though that's Army Hammer there. That's Josh Pence with the hair slicked back. Sorry, yeah. In terms of the aesthetic appeal of the film, is what you.
Yeah, it's a moving. Okay, here you go. There's a moving picture. Wow. Give me 13 cents.
Well, no, there is a scene in Zodiac of Robert Downey Jr. coming off the back of an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And I can probably watch that shot 100 times.
Right.
It's not because it's Robert Downey Jr. It's because everything Fincher did to get that image.
It worked.
Yes.
He's one of the handful. He really is. I mean, I know, well, I don't know this, but I seem to have a feeling that a lot of people kind of put him as a modern day Kubrick to a degree. I don't know if that's really accurate, or maybe I just kind of correlate those two individuals in my mind, but I find him.
Well, in terms of his technical skill level,
his attention to detail,
right?
He's certainly not very prolific, which is unfortunate for us.
It is, but you could tell early on in his career, like you look at a simple shot like this, where even the banner Harvard is just offset. He did that for a reason. He didn't want it centered for a reason. Right. That radiator, the heater, is in that shot of Nahindra for a reason. And you get that. I remember when did Vogue come out by Madonna? Well, I was like 12 or 13.
I was about to say 92,
and
I would imagine.
Something, 92 or 93. So I was like 17 or 18. Or even the Janie Got a Gun video from Aerosmith. You watched those videos and you knew you were seeing something special. Right. They were so different than everything else that was going on. And I get that for 1 hour and 54 minutes of The Social Network. I understand that what I'm seeing is different than everything else in the theater.
Yeah, they don't make a lot of this anymore. I don't know. That's probably a terrible way to put it, because they never made a lot of this type of stuff. This is always going to be in the very unusually artistic and high level. That's why he is what he is.
Yeah. Now, at the risk of sounding elitist ourselves, I would also like to add that
embrace the elitism.
We're talking about a technical ability in order to tell a story. There's plenty of stuff that I am a huge fan, if you must know, of Ice Pirates.
Well, we've all got our burdens to bear.
And not everybody is going to call that film art.
I did see it in the drive-in.
I would disagree.
No, I saw it in the drive-in. You can't disagree with that.
I can't disagree with that, true. But I disagree with the idea that people don't think the Ice Pirates is art.
No, it's definitely art. I mean, it's absolutely art.
Right. But
it doesn't mean it's
on the technical skill level of filmmaking, it's not anywhere near The Social Network, and that's the point that we're trying to make.
Yes.
right? You can go through any movie collect. I've got Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back right next to Kill Bill in my video collection, simply because it's J and K, and those might be the two spectrums that we're looking
close.
at here, right?
Although those are actually pretty well related. I mean, you both have. Okay.
Well, they're both.
We're getting
into
we're not going to get into that. So going back to this movie that we are watching.
Yeah.
Right. And this is actually pretty interesting. I literally cannot remember when Facebook came on the scene, but in my mind, it is very similar to the way it's portrayed in this. When that it's like 2 weeks later, people are saying Facebook me, and I don't remember Facebook like all of a sudden showing up. I don't remember, BF before Facebook and, AF. Well, that's a different thing altogether. But, but it is definitely everywhere and you can't escape it.
No.
And I don't remember, but it is, I bet you it was just like this where all of a sudden I didn't know what it was and all of a sudden it was associated with everything. Join our Facebook page.
Right.
Every single bit of advertising has that component embedded in it somewhere.
Well, I did have a MySpace page.
And now I vaguely remember MySpace.
And I don't remember how many years I had it, maybe 2 or 3 years.
I bet it still exists too.
No, Tom sold it for...
Yeah, no, I bet you your Facebook site still exists. Or your
MySpace page.
Right.
Well, it doesn't because they shut down MySpace.
They shut it down?
Because Tom sold it for $126 million
I think it still exists.
Well, I don't even know how to get back to mine. We can check that afterward. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is that? And what Disney show was she on?
Oh, is she a Disney actress?
Yes, because I remember seeing this.
The girl with the red bra?
Yes, because I remember the Asian gal. Because she was on a show that I used to watch with my daughter, pretty much at the same time when this movie came out, and then I seen her like going, "Oh, this is exceptionally weird."
Oh, because a Disney star is
just my experience with that actress was, oh, okay, she's part of a Disney show, and then she was on this, and a little bit slightly different than a Disney princess.
Well, I was kind of amazed that Rashida Jones was in it, and
very understated, role, but really important actually. I love the guy who says
Brenda Song.
She was on something.
She's done a lot of Disney. Robot Chicken. Life in Pieces.
But getting back to before the Social Network.
Phineas and Ferb, Wizards of Waverly Place.
Maybe that's what it was.
Hannah Montana.
I think it was
Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
Oh, that was it.
Yay Me.
We watch that all the time.
That's So Sweet. So, yeah, that never occurred to me. Saverin brings this up actually in The Accidental Billionaires about how for the nerd class, having an Asian girlfriend was a status symbol.
I would have thought just having a girlfriend would be a status symbol.
Right. But I guess that's how you get into the 1% of relationships is if you have an Asian girlfriend.
Gotcha.
And
they do have the whole thing about Asian women and Jewish men and how they're perfect matches.
Right.
Which is just a funny conversation.
It is. Yeah. And everybody wants something different. Everybody wants a girlfriend, of course, but everybody involved in this wants something different out of it. I mean, Mark wants to rule the world, or how it's portrayed, because actually, the motivation is, I want to prove Erica wrong. I want to do something to impress that girl who turned me down. You notice in the bar later when she tells him, have fun with your video game, that's when he turns right around and tells Eduardo, we need to expand.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely driven by it, but I don't think that's what his goal is. I mean, my impression for this goal is, I don't know how to best describe it, but he is very interested in creating an empire, to maybe not thought of as an empire, but he also wants to, the character in the movie is very interested in inflicting harm on others.
Like Schadenfreude?
I'm not sure. I mean, he on multiple occasions basically tries to destroy other characters. He does. I mean, he sits here and writes that blog post about his girlfriend.
Right.
He shuts out Eduardo, and he tries to, doom him with the whole fake story about the chicken. It's not a fake story, but planted story. I mean, he shuts out multiple characters throughout this, and he despises the Winklevi, right? And he tries to minimize them for him to succeed. I mean, he's actually quite the evil character in many regards.
Yeah, pushing people away.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost by design. And that goes down to the character Severin, who says at the end of the movie, I was your only friend. I was the only guy.
Yeah. And he completely screwed him.
Yeah.
For no reason.
It appears
there's no tangible benefit.
There's no tangible reason. There seems in the accidental billionaires there seems to be a
and I'm speaking purely about the confines.
Purely about the confines of the story. Yes, and IRL there seems to be a very persuasive argument that Severin did not put the sweat into the company, but you don't screw people out of their shares.
No,
because they didn't show up to work. They still own their shares.
Right. You can certainly fire them.
Right.
But you can't penalize them beyond that scope.
Right. So, I mean, in that aspect, I was actually, I didn't know anything. All I knew was I saw Jesse Eisenberg's picture on a poster, and it said, how can you gain 500 million friends?
You're
going to make a few enemies. Yeah. And it said a David Fincher film. And I said, I'm in. And I went to go see it. I didn't know anything about Facebook. And to be honest, I was not that hip or excited to see a movie about Facebook. But by the end of the story, when the pin drops and you find out what happened, I was shocked. I even going through the experience of what an asshole this character is, I was shocked at how Severin was treated.
Yeah, it is rather...
I would never fuck over a friend.
Somewhat upsetting.
Yeah, I would never fuck over a friend like that. It's just shocking.
And he hooks his buddy up for dates and drinks.
Yeah. Like even something like you see the camera move from right to left.
Yeah, and this is the part where I said, wait, I know I saw her in a Disney show. This is confusing me to no end.
When that does look like a bathroom on the spaceship in Alien 3. The Fincher likes green. I don't know what it is. A lot of his films are tinted with a green, different shades of green. Fight Club and Zodiac. Panic Room seems to be more like a blue.
Yeah, it does. But I think there are some... it's been a while since I've seen that as well.
You're supposed to know that that's marked because of the flip-flops.
My assumption was I don't think if you got that, you aren't paying any attention whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the post-orgasm goofy grins. Okay.
Yeah, there, Josh Benz. Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're cool guys. Fine.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield, this is a couple years before his Spider-Man role. The Amazing Spider-Man, which I thought was a decent movie, other than the fact that we had another 35-year-old play a teenager.
Right. It was reasonably... I mean, it wasn't god-awful or anything. It was just not amazing.
Right.
Because, it's the Spider-Man.
Yeah, here's another look at... I mean, that reaction that Mara has when she looks over and sees that it's him.
Yeah, she's not too ecstatic. And could it be more awkward? I kind of doubt it.
It must lend some credibility to Fincher's idea of after the 15th take, now you're malleable. And after the 50th take, now you're responding to what I want.
Right.
And after the 75th take, now you're in a spot where you can do everything that I ask you to do to a T. Because she acts so natural. It really reminds me of Molly Ringwald and John Hughes. Okay. How he was just able to elicit exactly what he wanted. They were on some sort of wavelength. And that's what I see between Fincher and Mara. There's a wavelength there that's very natural.
Yes. I mean, well, that's the nice thing about this movie is all the performances feel, to me, they all feel exceptionally natural, and it's very easy to lose yourself in the story and just buy the performances as just the characters behaving.
I also like the scene because she's wearing a beret. That's just...
But it's not raspberry, but whatever.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I am a beret-wearing fool.
Yes.
our audience never gets to see me. But
it's an exceptionally unusual choice, but you pull it off.
oh, thank
It's
you
not
very much.
criticism.
I appreciate that.
It's unusual from the strictly, it's just not common.
I know a guy who wears a beret, and it's weird, and
It's just uncommon.
It's been weird for 20 years. Yeah, but I'm sure any hat at all would look equally impressive on Rooney Mara.
She seems like a hat, like she could pull it off.
Yeah. So we went through the motivation already, rejection and exclusion. The film brings up Eduardo Saverin's dad constantly. Mm-hmm. I think he mentions him 4 times. Like he says, my dad would be impressed with this. You know what this means to my dad? Mark says, well, of course I do. And I don't know if Mark means, of course I do, because I have a father too, and I know what it would mean to my dad. Or it means, of course I know what this means to your dad, because he knows how obsessed with his dad Eduardo is.
I think it's probably more the latter, because to a certain degree, you don't even envision in the story Mark Zuckerberg having a parents.
Right. Yeah. They don't come up at all.
No.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, it's impossible to imagine. I mean, he's almost portrayed, like I said, not as a human.
Right. Yeah. Like a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so. And it did convey in the book quite a bit, because Saverin actually comes from Brazil. His parents were Jews who did not feel comfortable in Brazil. They had a lot of problems there with anti-Semitism. So they'd come to the United States as immigrants. They were wealthy,
yes,
of course, which is why he went to Harvard. Now, having said that, Zuckerberg's family is not wealthy. He went to Harvard on a full scholarship. They wanted him to go there because they knew that he was going to be.
He was gifted and talented.
Yeah, and he had a brilliant mind. He didn't pay Harvard a cent for his education, and he didn't make it to his junior year because he didn't have to.
Right.
So he dropped out after sophomore year. And, like Bill Gates, I'm sure he never looked back. And why should he? Everywhere the Winklevosses are, there's dark wood.
Yeah, I mean, they are very much old school,
And is Fincher trying to say it's exactly the word that I was going to use?
I don't know if he's characterizing. I think as much as anything, there's just a correlation inherent in your brain. There's this kind of subliminal, I know what this means, and this is what that means, which means, of course, he's doing it on purpose. Mm-hmm. But it establishes so much without having to say anything. I mean, these guys that I'm saying a lot, Harvard Starting Land Book, I mean, they pay attention to the rules.
They're very rule-oriented.
Mm-hmm. And they're not out of line, in my opinion.
No. And I was actually...
They pay tuition. They carry a 3.9. They work in there. They actually...
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think is really good, is that these 2 dudes are working their asses off.
That's right.
I mean, they are killing it. They are... I mean, sure, they were given things, because everybody who has children and who wants to give their kids things. But Stanford likes Stanford.
Yeah, I love Stanford.
But I mean,
it's hard to focus right now.
Yeah.
But back to the Winklevosses.
Yeah, they're established as hardworking, and literally they seem to be very stand-up guys.
Right, and when we shouldn't, they come across every bit as dicky as Mark does.
Oh, sure.
With their attitude and everything. But I have to say, these guys are up at 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they're hardworking, they're hard studying.
GPA?
Yeah, it's very hard for me to find fault with them. They're not wasting their time at Harvard.
No.
And they didn't waste their time at the Olympics.
You don't see them womanizing. I mean, there's a joke about it. We didn't check with our girlfriends on, if they were in the face match thing, but that was pulled off more as a joke, kind of a show.
Well, because the guys aren't going to think about that.
Yeah, but it also shows that, they have a sense of humor.
Right.
Actually, all in all, they're objectively better people than Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
In this particular story.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And it's very hard for me not to empathize with them. Like, I mean, I don't think, this is just my personal opinion, I don't think that the Winklevosses have a breadcrumb to stand on as far as having an idea. And, nothing was patented or copyrighted or trademarked or whatever. He got to it first.
But they did get a pretty good cash settlement, didn't they?
They got an enormous cash settlement, and that's
there's something there.
And that's Zuckerberg's fault for sure. And I think that's directly because he let him on for like 16 weeks or whatever. If he had told them immediately, no, you know what, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, and then he had turned around and did what he did, I think there had been no question, and the lawsuit would have been dismissed.
And they probably wouldn't have brought the lawsuit against him.
Right. It was because of he led them on so much. But there is no code from one to the other. I mean, he didn't write any code for their website, Connect You, and they didn't give him anything that was in Facebook.
Right.
So in terms of technical know-how, they're pretty separate.
But
However,
from a base idea, and I don't know how much that's actually worth, right? To me, I don't know if a basic idea, somebody comes up with a really good idea and somebody else executes that idea, I don't know how much intellectual property, I mean, how much is that worth?
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I do know that nobody from Deep Impact or Armageddon was suing each other.
No.
1998. That's what I remember, or Dante's Peak and Volcano.
Why do they do those?
Or the one year there were 3 competing Alexander the Great films and only one made it through Greenlit.
Very unusual, yes.
And one was going to be like by Martin Scorsese or something with Leonardo DiCaprio starring. I just, I don't know. I don't think, still love Stanford. I don't think that, again, my personal opinion, they did get a settlement. They have anything to stand on. But he just did not help in any given situation because he just seems like he's so socially awkward. He didn't know how to handle any of it. And if he had just asked Eduardo, I think he'd been a lot better off.
But
he is who he is.
He's got a lot of pride.
Yes. He does.
He thinks he knows better than everybody else. And to a certain degree,
that's a fault. Versus the Winklevi, who actually admit that they don't know anything and they're constantly seeking advice. Advice from their lawyer, advice from the president, advice from...
And this really is a tremendous scene with the president of Harvard.
Oh, yeah. Why are you here? Yeah, I love that.
They want to sell me a Brooks Brothers franchise.
Again, Fincher's humor, which people don't give him enough credit for.
But it has to be funny because, I mean, oftentimes his topics are so dark; these would be crushing experiences you couldn't handle.
Well, in this scene is also in the Winklevosses were also interviewed for the Accidental Billionaires, and they made a very persuasive point. And this scene is actually in the Accidental Billionaires. They recount their disappointing meeting with the president of Harvard, and I didn't see anything particularly out of line. They pay tuition like everybody else, like they were saying. I was actually surprised by his reaction, but he's allowed to have any reaction that he deems fit. He's the president of Harvard for a reason.
Right.
But again, it's all about tone, and it's all about how you present yourself. And it just does not seem like there's anyone in this situation that's likable except for Eduardo.
Yeah, he definitely comes off the best.
I mean, I'm not even Nahendra seems like a bit of a jerk too.
Yeah, kind of a weaselly little dude.
Yeah.
That's probably
Napoleon complex or something.
An unfair characterization, but yes, it's not that flattering.
Yeah.
But yeah, go out and invent something. And they did invent their own website, and it did thrive. They shut it down after a few years because it just didn't take off like Facebook took off. And
not many things did.
Their contention is if we had Mark program it the way that we had asked him to program it, then
we would have been there.
Then we would have had it, and we would have been partners, and we would have been sitting on $1 billion too. And that is the angle that holds the most water, I think.
Yes.
At the same time, the summer before Mark started coding, Savrin took, I think it was $3,000 of his tuition money, and he put it into oil futures. And in 3 months, because of weather patterns, he churned out $300,000 in 90 days.
And when time's going to get cold.
Apparently that was all based on an algorithm that he created that compared weather prices and oil futures.
Was that Saverin? Because I remember that being referenced in this movie.
That was Eduardo Saverin.
Okay.
And I believe that where he went to go work, they were using that algorithm. Mm-hmm. Because he moved to Singapore a few years ago. He actually surrendered his U.S. citizenship. Yes, because Singapore does not allow dual citizenship. Okay. So in order to stay in Singapore, he had to surrender it, which I thought I wouldn't do that. I've lived in a foreign country before and paid a lot of money to two governments, but I would never give up my U.S. citizenship.
For a 335-year-old doorknob.
Yeah. That I didn't get the doorknob thing. The Winklevoss scene, again, establishment, tradition, and him breaking the doorknob to me was a sign of disrespect. I get him being upset after the meeting, but I didn't understand why all of a sudden he just...
Well, see, I took it more as a signal that the characters who have always followed the path as it's supposed to be, we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that, we're supposed to do this, where they change and say, okay, we're not going to...
We're not playing by the rules.
We're not playing by the... We're going to do what we... Not what other people would like us to do, but we would want to do.
This is Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, right there, that is?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And he's in Moneyball, too. And apparently Fincher had to talk him into doing this. Like there was an actor on set that day, and Fincher was like, "No, you're going to do it." And Sorkin was like, "What?"
It's like, I don't have all day to shoot this one scene.
I don't know about that, especially the way you direct. 75 takes. And then there's another scene that actually Aaron Sorkin directed. It was a scene of shot outside the window of the kids in the college dorm eating pizza and looking at Face Smash.
Okay.
And Sorkin actually chose the clothing and the camera angle and everything to go around with it. And Fincher said he wanted him to do it.
And this may be my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah. Go ahead. Why?
Oh, I don't know. I just know that when I was watching it again, the combination of the music, the conversation, the reactions of the different characters to Sean Parker, who really does not come off as a likable character in this whole movie. But at this point, you completely get the hero worship. And it really portrays, again, Eduardo is really sympathetic, whereas seeing right through the bullshit. And I just really enjoy that scene.
There are 3 reasons why I like this scene in this movie.
Uh-oh.
Justin fucking Timberlake.
Okay.
Watch the way he walks into this shot here.
I totally get it. Right, he definitely has it. That guy could and should be a huge movie star. But he's making enough money and having enough influence doing what he wants to do.
Look at him.
Yeah, he's very cool. He is exceptionally cool.
That's Love Angel music, baby. That's amazing. Now, I was one of these people who I don't care about some Disney dude who had a music career and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then I saw... it's the one he made with Mike Myers, The Love Guru.
Oh, I never saw that. Doesn't break my eye.
JT is in that.
I've heard nothing but bad things.
You should give that a shot.
I don't think I'm going to.
If you watched Zoolander, you should at least watch The Love Guru.
Don't know if that computes in my head. We'll table that and come back to it later. But I mean, it's really well done. And then the countercutting with the deposition. And Eduardo's almost embarrassment when recording it. I mean, I just really think this is masterfully done. The cutting goes really well.
The slow-mo.
Music. Fast cut, slow motion. I mean, this is definitely my favorite scene. I mean, and it's one of the few times that's really well lit, it feels like.
Right.
Probably because he entered it, and all of a sudden he brings sunshine. It's just so many things work together.
He does seem to light up the room.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I've heard the same thing about Sean Parker. Sean Parker's in the room. Everybody knows he's in the room.
Some people are like that.
He's just got that personality.
He's got some charisma.
Yeah. And charisma can be infectious to people who, like Mark, are looking for it, right? I mean, I do not see Mark's character or the real Mark as particularly charismatic people.
No.
I've seen the real Zuckerberg give a speech at Facebook at at, like an unveiling event like Apple has every 6 months, and I wanted to fall asleep, couldn't get through it. I couldn't say the same about Jesse Eisenberg. I could probably watch him talk about anything for 15 minutes.
Right.
Right, but Parker...
Except for his devious machinations against Superman.
Whoa.
Aside from that...
I don't know. That didn't bother me. This Lex Luthor didn't bother me.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I get it, yeah. But anyway, I was someone who was very dismissive of a pop singer as an actor until I saw what he could do.
Oh yeah, he's exceptionally talented.
Yes.
I mean, he's one of those people that it wouldn't shock me if he was athletic enough to be a low-level professional athlete. He's just one of those people that appears to be touched by God.
He seems to put 100% of everything into everything that he does.
Oh yeah, he takes his natural gifts and he works his ass off. That's the only impression I get.
Yeah, and is he, I can't remember who he's married to. Jessica Biel, I think.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. Another person who is not just aesthetically pleasing, but seems to give everything 110%.
Yeah.
And again, comes from a very family-oriented background. Like she was on Seventh Heaven and things like that. Now we're talking about spouses. None of that matters. But Timberlake brings a magnetism.
Oh, yeah, and it's critically important. I mean, this character and the role he plays in the Facebook story in this movie, you need to have somebody that you can totally buy. It's like, oh, that's why people did those things.
Right.
Because this guy he said it was a good idea.
Well, and Sean Parker, the real Sean Parker, much like this character is portrayed, I won't say that he was living out of his car, but he actually did not have a home because of the whole Napster issue. He had a BMW, but he didn't have an official residence.
Right.
He was sleeping at his girlfriend's house, or whoever that girlfriend happened to be, or friends' couches, or when he was at Facebook, he was living in the house with Mark and Dustin.
Right.
Until they asked him to leave. I think it was about a year later, after Peter Thiel made the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this scene is definitely the rock star scene.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just watching reading the dialogue because a lot of it is exceptionally comical.
Oh, it is. There's
like picking up a 3,000-pound Marlin. That's be an exceptionally strong man.
If you ever watch Ocean's 11 with the commentary on it, it's Andy Garcia, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt. Okay. And there's several parts in the commentary where none of them are talking.
Yeah, it makes it for dull listening, so I apologize to
Well, they're all so interested in the dialogue and actually genuinely like the movie that they're, oh, yeah, we forgot we should be talking about this.
So, not a stunner. Not that tied into Napster. Was only tangentially aware of it when it did exist, because I don't think I was ever on it. Right? So, I mean, were you on the Napster?
I was. I downloaded Napster probably in early 1999, and I had it on my laptop, not my desktop, and I was downloading files, and I was putting those files onto disk, and I was listening to them. Now, I would say, actually, this was at a time when I was not too technically savvy.
Right.
And I didn't know that you could get free software on the internet just anywhere or where you would get it. Like download.net was not really a huge thing then. I was doing it primarily because I wanted to mix my playlists and burn them on CD.
Right.
So I was actually, the great majority of the time, I was probably getting music that I already had, because I wanted to move the MP3s around. I wasn't necessarily getting a lot of free music.
That wasn't the objective.
That wasn't the objective. Other than live plugins from Dave Matthews Band.
You couldn't.
Right. I couldn't
wasn't accessible in either way.
Right. So Dave Matthews Band had just very quickly, they had a program where you could actually plug into their board and record their concert, and they didn't care what you did with it. So a lot of people were putting it onto Napster, and I was grabbing those free concerts because I'm a Dave head.
Yeah.
I did. Now, Napster one day stopped working, and it was very public what was going on with it. And Sean Parker's name was all over the press with Sean Fanning, who's the main coder.
Okay.
They were the roommates, right? The Fanning was the coder, and Parker was the business end of it, much like Mark and Eduardo.
Right.
And Parker was the guy who was constantly talking to the press. Fanning was the guy who went to the MTV Music Awards with a Metallica shirt and right in front of the band said, "I borrowed this from a friend," which is a dick move to make, man. Dick move. Yeah, but it has its point. So
it is really funny though.
I was kind of familiar with Parker, but I got the Seans constantly mixed up. Sean and Sean. Now I did get a letter from Barbara Orbison telling me that
Orbison's widow?
Yes.
Okay.
Telling me that I owed her like $120 for music that I illegally downloaded on Napster, to which I would say, look, I like you.
Did you respond?
And I didn't write a letter back. No. But if I were to say something to Barbara Orbison, I would say, I respect the fact that your husband has left you his song rights and his publishing. But to be honest, I own everything Roy Orbison has ever done in triplicate.
Right.
So don't come after me for MP3s.
Sure.
That seems really a shitty thing to do.
But she doesn't have a copy of all your credit card statements.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, you have to prove that you owned it.
And it's one of those things. You send out 1,000 letters asking for 120. You hope for 2 or 3 people to send you 120.
And I'm sure some did.
I'm sure somebody did.
I was not one of them.
Oh, well.
And
she didn't come back?
No, she didn't
make a personal visit.
Didn't no. I guess that money wasn't. She could have filed a small claims.
I heard she was out of money for stamps.
I doubt that. But regardless, Napster was free. There was no subscription. They tried to put one on and it didn't work, and then they shut the company down. They tried to sell the company and that didn't work.
Right.
It was a doomed enterprise from the start. However, it also forced the industry to drastically change.
Yeah, it definitely changed the music industry. At least that's my perception of it.
And Parker is part of the reason that happened. And Facebook has drastically changed, probably even more dramatically changed our lives in the past 10 years than Napster has.
You think it's changed our lives?
I think so. I think the social network environment and everything that it entails and the life online.
I guess you're right.
I think it's different for us older folks. I mean, we're not boomers. We're Generation X.
Yeah, we don't care that much.
We don't give a... Right.
We'll just sit back and watch the world burn.
I have a Facebook account.
Right.
But I'm never on it. I only use it to push this podcast and my books. That's it.
Right. And that's...
I don't communicate on it. I don't blog on it. I can't remember the last time I logged into it.
Is that because you're inherently opposed to it, or it just doesn't interest you?
It's a time vampire. It doesn't interest me. I've been on it and have used it heavily in the past,
right.
And I'm happier without it.
Yeah.
And I'm uninterested into all of the, here's one of those camera moves I was talking about before. Mm-hmm. I'm uninterested in all the drama that it creates.
It certainly does seem to channel a lot of it. I mean, I have a Facebook, at least I did, like site. I don't even know. I don't even know if I could access it. I'm sure I could if I put any effort into it.
Yeah.
I haven't been on probably 5 years.
You have to request to delete it. So not logging into it after a number of years and it's still there.
I don't even know if I posted anything of significance, but that's not important. So this is I don't know about you, but this is precisely how I spent many of my college years. Shots around the computer. We just weren't doing anything creative with the computer. But it's very true to life. We weren't trying to build anything.
So this is how Zuckerberg actually. It's how he chose his programmers that came out with him to California with Dustin, and it's actually this is
fairly accurate.
It's fairly accurate. It's also it's still going on. I think it's twice a year now. Zuckerberg actually holds like hackathons
in the face shots.
Well, not shots, but it's time that the company sets aside for hackers to show their skills and their promise. And I don't know if they hand out awards or anything, but he does go around and personally reviews the code that a lot of these guys enter the competition with. And some of those ideas are patented. Some of those ideas are incorporated into Facebook, and some of them lead to to greater things.
Some of them get hired, and
it's part of that entrepreneurial spirit that Zuckerberg really pushes, which you have to say, he's very good at doing.
I mean, in this movie, he is definitely, in my opinion, portrayed as a villain, the villain. But I don't think of Mark Zuckerberg. Full stop. So
no.
I mean, to me, this is kind of a self-contained story as opposed to anything to do with reality.
Yeah, that's an odd shot there of Eisenberg. I didn't actually recognize him.
Just like Michael Cera.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Which I know it's not the first time somebody said that.
Yeah, and this really happened too. They broke the chimney.
This is again very funny stuff.
And then the look on Muskowitz's face is like, "Holy shit!"
Hey.
Yeah, is everybody okay?
Yeah. Now, who is the actor portraying Muskowitz? Because he looks familiar, but I can't place.
Yeah,
him.
he's one of those guys.
Like he's been on some television show that I've seen. I can't recall.
The Joey Pants Award, yes, Bill Simmons would say.
Now, do you think that this is legit? This is where Sean Parker shows up at the house in Palo Alto and says, "Oh, what? I can't believe you're here." I mean, certainly this is not legit. He knew he was there. Because Sean Parker never struck me as a dumb guy, just a guy who makes dumb decisions.
Right. So what it said in the book was I want to know that girl's name too, because she's also one of those. Who is she?
Right.
What has she been in?
Well, she looks like the woman who was in Northern Exposure.
Well, unfortunately, on IMDb, the casting for The Social Network is not listed by
character.
Right. So it's listed basically by who shows up first.
Oh, okay.
So it's very frustrating trying to
I don't think
track down names and what people have been in. However, what it said in the book was Parker did, in fact, live in the same neighborhood, and I believe it was down the street. And what he was doing was trying to help his girlfriend move a sofa into her house. Mm-hmm. And her parents were there, apparently. Okay. And he didn't get along with them. And when that happened...
That's when the chimney broke?
Yeah, the chimney broke, and it attracted his attention.
That would do it.
Yeah.
But still.
But it seems...
Oh, and this is... I'm sorry. This is another tremendously well-done
scene.
So I remember seeing this. This is the nightclub scene, for those of y'all who are still watching.
The crane shot up to the second floor of the balcony.
Well, what I remember being most impressed with is the sound mix.
Oh, yes.
Because the music is unbearably loud, but still the dialogue is exceptionally clear.
Well, and they were shouting. I mean, they added that soundtrack later, right?
But it's one of the... Yeah, I think it was, but it's just one of those... The way it's presented to the viewer is really well balanced. Because I never had to,
You never had to strain.
Because I was watching this in the morning, and it's loud, so I turned it down. But it's just really exceptionally well done. You don't usually see it like that.
Well, this scene to me is almost just as pivotal as probably just as pivotal as the introduction of Timberlake, or the Parker character at the dinner. You've got the sound mix is good, the fact that they're shouting, but it's not overbearing. You can understand everything that they're saying.
Right.
If I was going to relate that to something, it would be that scene in Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, where they're at the club and the music is on and you can't hear shit.
Right.
And now, of course, who knows what the hell David Lynch's purpose was, but he put subtitles.
That's why we love David Lynch.
Right. And he probably never intended for you to be able to hear anything that they were saying.
I'm sure he did.
And always intended for them to be subtitles, but that was always very annoying to me. But in that case, there's that, and there's also the conversation here, which is the Victoria's Secret story.
Is that real?
Yes.
That is a legit story.
Yes, it's a legit story.
I actually meant to, because it strikes me as something that could be totally made up.
Right.
Urban legend or legit. Have no clue.
Now, this part about Parker saying the girl I loved in high school was on some varsity I wanted to take her from, I have no idea. That was
considering this conversation never probably truly existed.
Well, I am sure that Zuckerberg and Parker had dozens of conversations a day for over a year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure they knew as much about each other as anyone would that's exposed to each other over that amount of time. Fincher's over-the-shoulder shots, they're quite amazing. And I've watched this several times to look at the people downstairs. Are they really dancing? Are they faking it? Are those fake sword swings in the back of Spartacus?
I think he's making them do it. They are definitely dancing. He'll make it shoot again. Those people are in the best shape ever.
for 70 takes.
Yeah. 120.
$1 billion company. And the idea of a company being worth $1 billion, a software company.
Mm-hmm.
And people also I don't think that people, particularly people younger than us, remember the .com bubble and how in the late 90s everybody was just throwing money onto the internet and companies were failing left and right. Mm-hmm. And there were companies that were small and didn't matter. And then there was, I believe it was right before 9/11, was the big bubble where there was a company that was making T-shirts in Detroit that was valued more than like
$70 million
Chevrolet or something, and it was just stupid.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No, and this is 2003, 2004. These characters would be very knowledgeable about the .com industry and the bubble. And Palo Alto is in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And they've got their finger on the pulse, so to speak. Especially Parker. Especially Parker.
Presume so.
Yeah. Just the way that he holds his hand over there. Excuse me. Like I'm sure that you can see Timberlake in any other film call another waitress over, and it'd be completely different.
Yeah. Here now, how much of this shot? This is the regatta.
Yeah,
how much of it is now? This almost all looks fake to me.
It looks
this
like
is about the only time that. And the funny thing is, it's probably not. It's always the way it seems to work.
Well, when I first watched it, it was like a film within a film.
Yeah, it's dreamlike.
It's like a kaleidoscope, those old kaleidoscopes that they would make with several different frames back in the 1890s, and you would spin it on a mirror in order to show you. The color scheme is completely different than the rest of the film. It's the whole race. Then it goes back when they go into the club, everything switches back. He's using some sort of soft ring on the lens so that everything else is out of focus, or else he's putting the camera just right on top of these guys, like Army Hammer there. These guys are going in and out of focus. They're using no deep focus at all. I was astounded, not that Fincher had shot it. He can do anything that he wants with the camera. I was amazed that he used it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely out of the rest of the movie, but that's also, again, on purpose.
And using Hall of the Mountain King, which I like. My only other movie reference for that is that's the song they use in M to notate the killer is available.
A long time since I've seen that.
Yeah. But they did compete. Henley on Thames, the regatta is held every year, and they did lose it that year. They came in second place.
And this was
no, that's all right. It just looks like the early days of film, and then that soundtrack of the Hall of the Mountain King. Like I remember not Fincher, but Trent Reznor saying that Fincher asked him to make Hall of the Mountain King like Wendy Carlos would make it. And for those of us, our listeners who don't know Wendy Carlos,
that would be me.
She did the entire soundtrack to the first Tron.
Okay.
So very, very much synthesizers and things like that, and then that's what Reznor did and turned it in. And Fincher was like, "I'm sorry, I ever mentioned Wendy Carlos," and he had to do it again. And that's what they used.
You do it how you think is best,
right? But I was really taken aback by that. I was wondering why Fincher did that. Why he used the soft focus ring. Why he was shooting it the way. Why did he want to make the movie within the movie, and what the point was.
And this is another thing I found pretty interesting, because here's Dad, and there's this expectation that they're going to portray their dad as this overbearing jackass. And the way it's portrayed is like, no, don't ever apologize to me. You guys did a hell of a race. And it's all very healthy, right? And it would have been very easy to portray any of these characters as, caricatures and stereotypes. And I guess if you're not looking at it with any degree of, criticalness, you would. But I looked at it, it's like, this is really kind of fair treatment of all the characters.
Well, it is. We don't know much about their father. We know about their actions, not necessarily his. But it could
we know more about their dad than we do Mark Zuckerberg.
So right,
we know more about Eduardo's than we do Mark Zuckerberg.
We do, but could it be that everybody's father has different expectations than what their children think they are? Mm-hmm. Does Eduardo's dad really blame Eduardo for Mark screwing him out of those
Probably
millions of dollars? Probably not. He's probably like, well, Eduardo, good job. Let's get a lawyer.
Yeah. Now, I think as much as anything, it just kind of shows how Zuckerberg is disassociated with people to a degree.
Right. Right. Which is the great irony of the film. The great theme of the film is this person who's just
bringing people together.
Yeah. Bringing people together is just not very socially viable at all. And apparently that is true in real life. Now, having said that, the guy is married to what seems like a very nice lady and has 2 kids.
Yeah.
He was on CNN last week showing their house and feeding the kids at the breakfast table, just like everybody else does.
I'm sure that wasn't arranged by any.
I'm sure it was highly arranged, highly choreographed. I'm sure there was lots of planning involved before that happened. And I'm sure that's not his real house.
Yeah,
but
I would hope not.
Well, I'm sure he's got several.
If I'm him, I'm not letting people in my house.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to rent one and we'll have it there.
To a certain degree, if I'm Mark Zuckerberg, nobody would even know what I look like.
Right. Yeah. He does have moobs, though, which I find very hysterical.
Moobs?
For moobs, like male boobs.
Oh.
Yeah. For someone with that kind of money who could get like 5 personal trainers around the clock to keep me healthy and fit, I would not have moobs. More or less, I would not wear a tight T-shirt on CNN with my wife and my 2 kids there to reference it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. They'll never let them live it down.
So I think this is the shot where Timberlake had a drink, and man, I meant to point it out to you. And then the door rings, and he goes to answer the door. He's got to put the drink down somewhere, so he puts it on an open laptop. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be like, okay, take 98, take 99. Well, obviously, that happened for a reason. What is Fincher trying to say? That Parker just has a disregard for programmers, that he truly doesn't give a shit about the laptop, or he's trying to say something about Parker's influence on Facebook, of he's taking it all, he's going to try to take it all down, his personal behavior.
Or is it a criticism of Parker in that, like, he doesn't really have any skills? I mean, he is highly skilled at networking and communicating and all that. I mean, he's at the soft skills, but what does he do? What does he bring to the table besides that networking quality? Seems to be minimal, if not non-existent, because he doesn't write any code. He doesn't put up any money. He doesn't really do anything tangible aside from, get them hooked up with the money people, which, okay, that matters a lot. So major props for that one. Sure, but
he knew Peter Thiel.
I mean, you were talking about him and his Napster partner, what was the guy?
Sean Fanning.
And you said Fanning did all the coding?
Yeah, most of it, yeah.
Yeah, does Parker do any? I have no idea.
Right.
But the way I could see it is like, it's just not his thing. So
yeah, he was the public face of the company. Which it wasn't even a company. I mean, Fanning was running it out of his dorm, for a very, very long time before they even hired servers on it.
Right.
And I don't know much about how they got the money infused into Napster, but I know that they declared bankruptcy because they couldn't pay off the lawsuits. And I know that Steve Jobs changed all of that.
Yeah.
Almost overnight, 2 years later, with the iPod.
In the iStore.
The iStore and the iTunes. And I remember Sheryl Crow and Steve Jobs on the cover of Rolling Stone talking about the future of music is 99 cents a song. And
they were wrong.
And now it's the future of music is $1.29 a song.
No, now the future of music is 0 cents a song.
Oh well, yes, because of Spotify and all of that.
I mean, nobody buys music.
Well, I mean, I do, but I'm old fashioned.
I still buy CDs. I'm ancient.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Spotify account, but I still buy.
No, well, I have Google Music, so. But yes, but people younger than us.
Yeah, people who are not Generation X. Yeah, I still fucking buy vinyls. Man.
Yeah, well, that's different. Vinyl seems to have its own niche, right? But if all of a sudden you made it where people had to pay for things, people would freak out.
Well, no one's going to pay for Facebook. $1 a year. People will say, "Fuck this." No, they'll delete their account.
They'll go to something else.
Right, and Zuckerberg knew that.
Yeah, because he's not dumb.
Right. No. He might be many things.
But certainly not.
Dumb has never been, he's never been accused of that. This is one of those shots. It's almost like the yellow is, to me, is like a warning. It's before the red light.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty
Right.
perceptive.
And it's in a hall because he's going to cut off the money now. But it's in a hallway. And I just thought at the time how ballsy it was. Like, Fincher shooting this in the hallway. Like, he's got all these big set pieces throughout the entire movie. But for this scene, he wants it in the hallway. And I guess it's because of the closed walls.
Yeah.
He wants it to feel claustrophobic.
And personal.
And he's wearing a yellow shirt. So here's, I think, the first time that I noticed that Mark has a North Face jacket on.
Yes.
And then, like, North Face makes these appearances throughout the movie from here on. That's sort of, like, very obvious. Mm-hmm. And, again, it's one of those things of what is Fincher trying to tell me? North Face is a more expensive line of winter wear, but it's not outrageous. It's not like weatherproof or,
right.
It's not a top line Saks Fifth Avenue brand.
But it's a slight step up over the Gap?
Huge. Yes, I would say so. Gap is a $30 jacket, and that jacket is $125. When the last time I bought mine, which was 10 years ago in Kanekistan.
And this is his girlfriend who scares him.
Okay, so yeah, Brenda Song, if we remember. So this scene is a representation of what Eduardo Saverin claims was real behavior. So this did not happen in her like freaking out and
precisely this
thing. Precisely, but apparently she was a very obsessive girlfriend, and it got way out of hand to the point to where he was flying back and forth from California to New York or to Boston, and she apparently was not happy about it. And every time he landed, the voicemails and the texts were insane. And then while he was on the phone with her, she set his entire closet on fire.
That may be
his entire wardrobe. Right. Well,
it may not have been anything. It may have been that.
I was pretty, but she was not named in the book.
This is you're telling me that the CFO of Facebook doesn't want to change his relationship pattern?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's embarrassing. Don't tell anybody.
Silicon Valley sluts. It's like when I think of Silicon Valley, sluts does not really enter my mind in terms of people who are there. I think all the sluts are in the city.
Yes.
But who knows? Yeah. Have you ever? Yeah. So that was another thing. Is like you go to Harvard, you live in Boston, you don't have a silk scarf. Like what?
It is rather surprising.
That's kind of. Doesn't everybody in Boston have a scarf? And if they don't, shouldn't they? I have 2 scarves.
I think I have 2 as well. And I live in Houston, where I wear it once every 3 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's unfortunate.
So, yeah, he did have to dump that relationship. And obviously Mark and Sean were pissed that Eduardo had cut off the funds. And that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Facebook.
Right.
The company was concerned was the CFO is not here and is not on board.
Right.
And cannot go to meetings because he is not physically present. And therefore they had to do something. And when he cut off the money, it was, we're definitely moving on. But like we said before, that doesn't give Mark the right to.
I wouldn't think so, but the way it's portrayed in this movie, certainly not.
Yeah.
Garfield, by the way, is, I'm sure you know this, he's British.
I didn't know that, but I'm not stunned.
Yeah, he has a very, very heavy English accent. And I did not know that until I saw, this was after The Amazing Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I bought The Social Network on DVD and used and saw
some of the special features.
The special features when he was speaking. I was like, holy shit. Because acting is different now than it was even 40 years ago. So have you seen Wolfen with Albert Finney.
Not in probably 30 years.
Yeah. Okay. So Albert Finney plays like a New York cop. So
Right.
he has to put on this like New Yorker accent.
it's terrible.
It's fucking sucks. It's horrible. It's really bad. And here I went 2 hours without even an inkling of this
Right.
guy is.
Yeah, the British invasion has really come on. It's annoying. They're everywhere. Sorry.
It's all right. No, he's wearing a 3-piece suit. So he's all business here.
Absolutely.
34.4% interest. These guys kind of reminded me of the two douchebags in Office Space.
The Bobs?
The Bobs, yeah. Bobs are coming in and telling her, so you've got 34.4%. Could you tell me some more there? Could you expand on that, Wardo, and tell me how you're contributing to the company? But if Wardo thought that he was going to get more out of Facebook, he wouldn't have settled either. So he must have been happy with the deal.
Oh, I'm sure it worked out very well for him.
Yeah.
I am sure that Severins will never have to work in their entire life. My question is, do they have Facebook accounts?
That's a very good question. Rashida Jones just looks so normal. Everyone here besides Mark looks normal.
Mm-hmm.
Mark looks like he's annoyed, not just out of focus, but
And he's wearing a tie with what appears to be a hoodie.
yeah, it's almost like he got dressed for synagogue at the last minute type of thing, you know, like and his parents made him do it before he left. Like he doesn't want to wear a tie.
Right.
He doesn't want to be here.
I'm going to because you're making me.
Yeah, and that goes to the other scene of the deposition where he's like, "My mind is not here. My mind is on Facebook.
Right.
I'm giving you exactly how much."
In a lot of meetings.
Well, this is true.
Yes, I'm giving you as much attention as you deserve.
Right.
So Peter Thiel, not to get into anything because of the pure aspect of the scandal, but Peter Thiel got into it with another .com, which was Gawker. Gawker.com outed Peter Thiel as gay, which was extremely shitty.
Vaguely familiar.
It is very, very underhanded bullshit that Gawker did all the time to a lot of people.
Very familiar.
And they picked on the wrong fucking dude. And Thiel was ready to go to war. And he's like, I fucking own a third of the internet. I will make you hurt.
You pay.
And so Gawker published a sex tape of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that I've also somebody's wife or something.
Right. Yeah, they were both.
I don't know the details, but there's
yeah,
something there.
I believe one of or both of them were married. And it caused a complete ruckus. And Peter Thiel said, I will bankroll your legal defense to take down Gawker. And it happened.
Right.
They did it. And so I am of two minds. I am completely of the opinion that Gawker.com does not need to exist. I'm perfectly fine with them douchebags like that not being on the internet. At the same time, I don't know how I feel about a really rich person pointing at anything that he doesn't like and saying that needs to disappear.
Yeah, but it's been like that for forever.
That's very
I
true.
mean, and yeah, it's not necessarily good, but it's certainly not new.
Facebook is doing that. They get to determine what accounts need to disappear.
And some people would say they determine who the president is.
That's very true, which Zuckerberg very recently said in a closed-door meeting, which got out, which is Elizabeth Warren is not president as long as I'm president of Facebook.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see.
And I don't like Elizabeth Warren. I'm not voting for her. I don't want anything to do with her, but I do not want any one person, particularly Mark Zuckerberg, having that kind of power.
Right.
Jesse Eisenberg I'd be fine with.
So this is
when he gets fucked. Yeah. This is absolutely amazing how Garfield just loses it. And this is my favorite line in the entire film. And I screamed this at the top of my lungs to my son outside his door to wake him up just last week because I thought this was so good. I left my Prada at the cleaners, you pretentious douchebag. I was just amazing.
Boom.
And yeah, just boom shakalaka. Call security. He's keeping it right under the line. Call security. And there's where they go through the math.
Right.
And it's just drop drawing, just how unbelievably unfair it was. While they're talking dilution, I'm going to talk pollution.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
A helicella pollution.
Those are pretty tremendous. And this does kind of, in the movie, the way it's presented, it's like, it's the same.
It was just so unexpected. And you knew that they weren't getting along, but I had no idea that the relationship was so bad that they would do something like that to someone so close to them. It's such a betrayal.
Yes.
Fuck you, flip-flops. Oh, the previous scene where Parker took him to that company, a capital company, and told him, go in there and wear flip-flops. And
Parker said, fuck you. Yeah.
right, yeah. That really happened too.
I believe it.
And that was the company that fired Parker after Napster. The animal cruelty story is in the Accidental Billionaires. They bring it up, but I do not recall if Saverin had said yay or nay on it. But I read some things on the internet that the chicken story was concocted, and it was something was made up for the movie, and that's not the case. It's in the Accidental Billionaires. Now, whether or not Saverin admits to it, I couldn't tell you.
Now, this is another really good sequence.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, when he gives him his money back.
Right.
And then he lunges at him. Like, oh my God.
And he says, like, sitting next to you makes me look so much tougher.
Yeah, and again, let's throw JT some props here, because I don't think that Justin Timberlake is afraid of anything.
At this point, I wouldn't imagine
so. But I totally bought that. Parker was like, hey, man, you know. And he's looking around like he's embarrassed, like he was charged. And so let's change the topic. Well, that's it. It's like a New York City cop. Show's over.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Right.
And it's funny because this part, the big celebration where they have 1 million users. Yeah. How many users are on Facebook now?
Oh, my God.
I haven't the followers.
It's got to be over 1 billion. It's like 1/4 of the planet.
Is it really?
I think it is.
I believe it. That's shocking.
It's like that sign outside McDonald's.
Over 40 billion served, what have you?
It's worth knowing. How many users does Facebook have?
I'm going to guess 700 million.
As of 2013.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry, no, 2017.
Still, it's way
April
up.
2017. 2 billion.
You think that's 2 billion individuals, or is that including every single business that has a site?
Well, you can
organization.
Yeah,
I bet you that's
for a while you couldn't distinguish corporate entities, and now you can. But that's probably just accounts.
Yeah, but some it's just accounts, but that's not important.
So on the 5th or 6th time I watched this, I noticed that the girl who dropped off the business cards and walked away with the short skirt, that's the girl that has Coke on her belly at the party.
No, it's not the same.
No? But
she's there.
She's in the room. She's in the room.
She's in the room, yeah. She's
Okay.
the one on the far right, I think.
Right, yeah, the one who lies about her age. Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Oh, yeah, she was an intern. This being the age of interns. But Eduardo Saverin accepted an internship for that summer at a capital company in New York, in Manhattan.
In the movie, he had quit
after a week or something, right? But in the book, he was there
the whole time.
Yeah, so it begs the question: how serious were you?
He probably wasn't near as serious as these guys were.
Right.
But if he had a stake that was legit, which it was, oh well. We don't have to worry about that. That's not important.
Right. So this scene here, Parker's talking about the true digitization of life. I'll fix a lot of these things in post. You know what he's talking about there?
No,
the pictures. Instagram.
Oh, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. That was about the third or fourth time I watched. Like, holy shit, he's talking about Instagram. So I instantly got on. I was like, did Sean Parker have anything to do with Instagram? And
Facebook owns Instagram, right?
I think Google owns
No,
Instagram.
I think it's Facebook.
You think it's Facebook?
I think it is. I'll bet you it's Facebook. I also another social media component I'm not on, but that's fine.
Who owns Instagram? Facebook.
Okay. Because Facebook owns a lot.
They do. Google owns a lot, or I should say
Google
Alphabet owns a lot.
Yeah,
Alphabet owns Google.
But I suspect that owns more than Facebook.
She is ripped, by the way.
She does a lot of sit-ups.
Her belly is admirable.
So I'm going to have to ask you to button your pause. Okay, that's fair, you know.
Yeah. That's not mine.
I have an inhaler.
That's right. Is this cocaine on your hand? That's not mine.
It's flour.
That's probably what
cookies.
It's probably what Robert Downey Jr. said when they pulled him over in Malibu with the 45 and half the brick of coke in his seat. That's not mine.
Somebody borrowed my car.
EpiPen. Apparently, he did have that problem. He carried an EpiPen on him at all times. And this girl cracks at the end. She starts crying, I lied. I shouldn't have lied. Like she's 12 or something.
She's probably 19.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she's underage because they're at a party that serves alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the walls around Mark Zuckerberg, everything is getting shut off.
Yeah, the lights go off.
Yep.
Zuckerberg would. I get the idea from the film. There's several points in the film where Mark would shut himself off for a day or even more, and I mean like 36 straight hours or 40 straight hours of doing nothing but coding. And apparently that's a true life phenomenon, not just with Zuckerberg, but with a lot of programmers. That's just what they do.
Just like writers, right?
Yeah, when you get into a groove, you just do it. But I can't imagine like coding is so. I mean, I don't know anything about coding. I know that the little bit I've done, it's hard to remember.
Yes.
And keeping all of that in your head and not making a mistake after 15 or 16 hours, I can't imagine how they pull that off.
That's why there's very few people who do it, and they do it well. Thank you for Mr. Obvious statement there for me.
Well, so this goes back to, well, I'm just going to drop that idea, and I'm going to go to somebody else. Margaret Wendt. And there's no reason for anybody to know who Margaret Wendt is. The only reason I know is because I listen to this podcast called Canada Land, because I used to live in Canada. Margaret Wendt is a columnist for the Globe and Mail, which is the number one newspaper of Canada. Yes, I know. Sure. Newspapers, which we live in the digital age now.
I missed it, newspapers.
But to connect everything to the age of the digital era, she is aging. She's an aging boomer, and she's writing an increasing number of articles or columns that are just head shakers.
Okay.
And one of them that just had me last year just rolling, like I didn't know whether to laugh at the absurdity or to just sigh and throw it in the trash. But she actually said the emphasis that Canada was placing on programming and coding in the colleges and in the high schools was absolutely uncalled for. She said there's no reason to push coding and programming education in our youth. It's unwarranted. It's paranoia. It was sensationalism because of movies like The Social Network specifically. It was pushing this idea that if you code and if you program, then you can all be rich and you can all run .coms and you can all be wealthy and affluent and blah, 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 blah. And she said, by the way, it's all worthless because you don't need it because everybody's got an app on their phone that does anything anyway.
Okay.
That was her argument. Whatever you need, you don't need to program or code it because there's an app on your phone that does it anyway.
Okay, that's inherently confusing.
Yes. Apparently she didn't really understand that programmers and coders are the ones who create that phone software and app anyway.
Right.
Now, I will go with an argument that Steve Jobs made during one of his little pep talks, which I thought was one of the rare ones that I was actually hooked into, which was you can have all the sciencey things. That's all fine. But if you don't have the humanities to inform you what to do with those sciencey things, you're lost.
It's incomplete, yes.
Yes. So he was bringing up the design of all of his iProducts, the design of the iPhone, the icons on the iPhone. All of those were informed by people who were educated in the humanities.
Right. It wasn't. Yeah, you don't want the nuts and bolts people doing that stuff.
Right. So in this film, for instance, in the very beginning, you know, Mark makes a jibe at one of the email addresses that Savarin gives him to send out the Facebook. It's like, oh, wow, that's Jabberwocky. So he's making a literary reference like that's. But he knows that.
He knows what it is, yeah.
He knows enough, right?
And
he's informed by the humanities, probably not enough.
And the end.
The refresh.
Back to the beginning.
Yeah, the refresh. This killed me. This killed me.
Looks up the old girlfriend, and finally, after all these years, puts forth a friend request.
And of course, he doesn't. He uses the trackpad, of course, but programmers, you know, they don't use trackpad the great majority of the time. They use shortcuts. So I think he's hitting like Control F2
or F5.
Control F2 or F whatever it is. Yeah, is it F5?
I think it's F5. It's refresh.
Refresh. And then the song, "Baby You're a Rich Man," by the Beatles, right? 65. "Baby You're a Rich Man" by the Beatles.
Never heard of them. I'm fucking with you. Yes.
I don't remember what album it's off of. I think it's.
You know which album it was off of.
It's either Magical Mystery Tour or it's not Sgt. Pepper. It's Magical Mystery Tour or the White Album.
I'm stunned if you don't know.
But regardless, 65 million, and then Savarin's settlement was undisclosed.
So that means it was significant.
Yeah, over 100. I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah,
I'm guessing. And it's all about her.
You get around to it, it's just a guy looking for a gal.
That's the nice way of putting it. I was going to be more vulgar about it, but
yeah, let's go with the nice.
We can go with the nice.
In order of appearance, yeah.
And that's it. Do you have any final words about The Social Network?
No, it's just a tremendously well-made movie with a compelling story over something that's, you know, at the time that it came out, and for me at least, it's still, you know, an interesting topic with a current phenomenon, right? I mean, I know Facebook is still a major thing. Probably won't always be, but it is for a long time. But it's, you know, I don't know if it's my favorite movie of Fincher's, but it very well might be.
Well, favorite and the greatest are two different things.
Yeah, that's why I put it like that. Cause
absolutely.
This has got one of the highest levels of rewatchability.
Yeah.
Right? You can just watch it again, right? There's a scene, but this is one of the few ones that doesn't make you want to necessarily take a long shower. Just a short one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my favorite Fincher film is Fight Club.
Yeah. I mean, that one's, yeah.
I mean, that's just, but like his greatest film is probably Zodiac. But what is the best film this century? Probably The Social Network.
Probably.
19 years in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to distinguish those.
Sure. Absolutely.
And what it says about our times and what it says about us as people in the West living under this very strange regime, which none of us really fully understand, with Cambridge Analytica and what Facebook is doing with elections and the personal connections that it takes to establish all of that. And you know, those of us who spit on Mark Zuckerberg will turn right around and check their LinkedIn status.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or their Instagram, not knowing that it's owned by Facebook, or jump on the Twitter.
Is LinkedIn owned by?
No, I think that's owned by. I think they sold it to Google a few years ago. Okay. I could check that again. I'm probably wrong.
Not that important.
At this time in the credits, probably not.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming over again, Dave.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.
True joy and always unexpected surprised to be invited. So thank you.
For sure. And we're out. Thanks for listening to Dave and I pretend to know what we're talking about during the social network. If you like what we did, you can leave a rating on iTunes to spread the word. If you think we suck, you can drop me a line at thatdylandavis@gmail.com. All music on this podcast was written and recorded by Rosalind McPhail. You can find her and myself on SoundCloud and Twitter. You can find me, my books, and my blog on www.thatdylandavis.com. I'm Dylan Davis, and we'll meet next time at the Tinder Spit.